I had to drag myself to the hospital, where I spent many hours before being sent home. After obtaining a pain shot, a friend picked me up because I couldn't drive. After waking up from a nap at home, intense pain forced me back to the emergency hospital. The hospital didn't know they didn't have an endocrinologist or x-ray technician until late that night after I was dropped off. I was moved 52 miles from my modest Midwest hospital during treatment. Doctors diagnosed me with acute colitis. Agony pulsed around me. I started to feel back pain. The nurses ignored my calls for help. 3 or 4 days following my hospitalization, my hospitalist told me, "I've given you 2 milligrams of morphine and upped you to 4 milligrams. I think you're a drug seeker." I was furious. A voice said, "Make a scene, make it big, or you won't make it out." At that moment, I knew how to generate a scene, even though I didn't know who was talking. Although I was raised Catholic, I recently turned to atheism and ended up in a Catholic hospital. As my body gave up, my doctor was fired, and I couldn't move my legs or feet. I yelled to get everyone's attention since he still didn't trust me. Another doctor said, "Oh my God, she's dying. She's gained 43 pounds of fluid in 3 days and has turned gray. Has anybody checked her creatinine level?" as he left the exam room. Only one did. Blood tests showed my kidneys had shut down, explaining my increased pain over the preceding 4 days. I was taken to the dialysis facility and treated well. The chief nurse's request for my authorization to start a blood transfusion made me uneasy because I was alone. My mind kept saying yes, so I gave in. I crossed Earth like clouds after what seemed like a lifetime. The trees and foliage made it look like a park. Birds flew across foggy blue skies. Jesus stood on the left under the trees. "Oh my God, you really do exist," I screamed, staring at him. He smiled and extended his arms, inviting me to hug him. It was I followed his turn after being hugged. He said, "Come on, we have a lot of work to do." I said, "Yeah, I know you're dealing with me," because I was an atheist at this point. My guides included El Moria, Mother Mary, Archangel Michael, and Street Germain. I had to reflect on my life and react emotionally after so much. I have to think like everyone else and listen to their opinions as well as mine. When things got tough, they paused my life review so I could regroup. Being carefully guided through the process seemed like divine treatment. According to my guidance, Archangel Michael took me into another golden capsule after my life review while the others waited outside. He told me to kneel. I remember him reading Psalm 91 while standing. He extended his right hand in a kind gesture as he translated Psalm 91 in Aramaic, touching me deeply. I still feel its great impact. I cried when he finished because his nurturing and loving presence overwhelmed me. Michael asked, "Megan, why are you crying?" I reply, "Because I've been such a jerk to you guys. I haven't believed in any of you. I've said F this, F that, and I had nothing nice to say about God, Jesus, or heaven because of a traumatic experience when I was 20. I thought, wow, there is no God, when I became pregnant from my own home, and then I chose abortion, which I swore I'd never do. So I carried that with me, and here I am in front of love in heaven. I can't even properly describe, there are no words, to explain how good it felt to be in the presence of such a powerful, incredible soul who was nurturing, loving, and non-judgmental. After the cherubs dressed me in a white toga with a stole and an earth insignia with 7 flames to indicate that I was a tourist from Earth, we left the golden capsule. I and my comrades and Archangel Michael began our brief climb to a gigantic white temple with a dome. A cherub played music from 2 tiers on either side of the 10-foot entryway to welcome me. Jesus let me in even though I didn't believe in God and didn't know what I was doing. As my guides advanced, I followed. Before that, I had only considered returning to my 4-year-old who was with my girlfriend. Sadly, events did not go as planned. I experienced an unprecedented love surge when I entered the temple. The majestic structure was soothing and calming. My terrible life and upbringing made me feel unworthy of gaining all. This happened all at once, and I couldn't place myself. Like gliding to the table. Jesus was my only non-sitting guide. Jesus brought me a chair, and I sat down. He sat across from me with an elderly man. Who is this guy? I asked myself at the table with 77 others. When he started talking, we all paid attention. I wondered, who is this guy? He interrupts the congregation in the first 5 minutes and says, and Megan will be going back to Earth. I think, oh, he says, oh, it is right, Megan. He then looks at me. I thought, oh my, you're God. I remembered hearing in my catechism classes as a youngster, God can hear your thoughts. Be careful of your thoughts. I never believed it, but now I was staring at God, listening to my thoughts that I hadn't said. I felt uncomfortable and wanted to apologize. Please, God, Your Holiness, pardon me, I bumbled. Everyone at my table was shocked. He said, I'm not upset by that word. It's a man-made word. You're forgiven. But be careful what you think because I hear those thoughts too. And be careful what you wish for because I hear those too. It struck me. His words, in about, made me shiver. I still didn't believe in paradise. I feared the worst and felt nervous. He astonished me by saying, I forgave you. You asked for forgiveness many, many times. You didn't kill a soul. You can't kill a soul. All you did was send him back to heaven, and now he's waiting for you on earth. That knowledge changed me. I had felt remorse for 18 years, but today changed. It was hard to accept that decision while facing shame and censure from many churches, especially the Catholic Church. I want you to feel comfortable. Just relax, God said, leaving me wondering what that meant. Due to my concerns and a sense of being underappreciated, I had never felt comfortable with so many spirits. God urged me to feel comfortable in love, but I had no idea how. I decided he really wants me to feel comfortable, so I leaned casually over the golden chair and said, well then, I'm just going to be myself. The table laughed, which was amazing. Their comedy was great. That began my trek to the temple, where I received God's first insights. Giving you one. God seemed to explain something to me. Above us, he opened the dome with his hand. Pointing to the stars, he explained that humans come from numerous worlds in the galaxy. These planets house all souls. Now that I think about it, he was preparing me for heaven. Someone told me to stand and round the table after I paid attention. I had to stop at every spirit because they had important things to say. 26 archangels followed the soul to my right of Michael. Goddess then sat with me to the left. Goddess, who was compassionate and beautiful, smiled at me as we stood together. I had never met such a beautiful woman. She told me, Megan, it's okay to be yourself. Just be yourself. After I thanked her, I heard everyone at the table exclaim, blessings received, the deepest form of thankfulness. I felt comfortable, as if they were repeating the routine. Right of Goddess was Sitting Bull, then White Eagle. White Eagle was familiar to me from a children's book my grandmother gave me as a teenager. My grandmother found comfort and expression in White Eagle's quiet, thoughtful poetry in The Quiet Mind. As I stood before him, he whispered words that will stay with me. I was thinking of responses when he looked at me and said, Megan, when you come across a white feather, this is not a trivial thing. I want you to ask yourself, are you doing or are you being? He comforted me. No need to answer now. Just think about it. That wisdom has stuck with me. Many things happened after White Eagle. I'll obey God. God asked me, Megan, you're the driver of a car. I'm your passenger. We come to a fork in the road. Left or right? Which way are you going to go? As we were side by side, it seemed like a trap question, like I had to know something deep. He smiled and said, no, it doesn't matter. Left or right, I'm always going to be your passenger. May I touch your cheek? I politely requested God. He generously replied, yes. I softly caressed his left cheek, thanked him, and added, blessings received. I thought, now I can tell people I touched the face of God. He and everyone smiled. From the temple, I'll share some of these experiences. Continuing, I entered paradise. I don't have time to count how many times I circled the table. After Jesus invited me to meet him, we entered my royal purple tent. While I sat there, he asked, so, what seems to be still bothering you? What are you still having trouble with? I say, Jesus, I'm having such a hard time with how I've been treated in my life. Abused, ignored, abandoned, neglected. I don't know how to be okay with this. Everyone in the temple said from God onwards that acceptance is synonymous with love. I'm trying, but I just don't know how to fully accept it. Then he continued, okay, I want you to think about every circumstance you've experienced in your life. Each one is like a child. Knowing this, what would you do for these children? And I would save them. They are mature enough to live independently. He chuckled and laughed and continued, Okay, we need to talk more about this. He described how each child had been abandoned, never cared for, and was suffering emotionally, physically, spiritually, and psychologically. After explaining, now that you understand what each child represents, what would you do with them? What would you name them? I cried as I detailed my plan. I would nurture them, embrace them, speak to each of them, comfort them in any way I could. I would listen to them. He asked, What would you name them? I was overwhelmed and rambled. I cried as I whispered to Jesus, Love. Each of these children was a gift of love. You're starting to understand. Good, he replied with pleasure. At that moment, 300 golden cherubs entered the tent, breaking the tension. Though not everyone required it, the tent was spacious. Both inside and out, they lined walls. So Muhammad entered the room. I knew nothing about him or Islam when we met in the temple. We rose in awe as a sign of respect. I discovered that God, Muhammad, and Jesus' love frequencies form a tapestry over our galaxy like a negative photographic image. Taking a seat, Muhammad looked at me and said, Megan, you will go back to Earth. You will tell everybody. I've been with the Middle East since I left. I've been praying for them ever since I left. I pray for the whole world. I want the best for everybody. I love everybody. I have love to give for everybody. I want you to tell everyone that you saw me here. I looked at the Prophet Muhammad when he finished speaking. When I inquired, May I ask you a question? He nodded in consent. I asked, Why me? Why are you telling me all of this? I don't know anything about Islam. I came in here as an atheist of 18 years, having grown up Roman Catholic. That's all I have. I don't know what else to tell you. He confidently replied, I have my ways. He reassured me that he had done nothing wrong. Before turning to me, he said, My time allotted with you has come to an end. I must leave now. He placed aside the book and left with the cherubs. I struggled to articulate this when I returned. After what seems like an age, 16 or 17 years ago, I realized I had to tell their experiences. I wrote A Catalyst, My 5 Days in Heaven. God told me to write a book even though I didn't know its topic. I said, I've never written a book before. And he said, I don't care. He ended with, You'll figure it out. Cherubs flew about me as I stood amid ascending saints, archangels, and masters. I implored God not to bring me back to earth because I knew I would face many obstacles after and before my near-death experience. Cried hysterically. I couldn't remember what would happen when I woke up on earth. I started crying since everyone was chatting to me and had messages. Both raised their right hands, beaming a white light inside me. My nervousness vanished and was replaced by amazing love. After meeting everyone, I left. I saw Jesus in Street Germain again under an olive tree. The bright sun made everything pleasant. Street Germain sat kneeling as Jesus and I talked. I implored Jesus, please don't leave me here. I don't want to return to earth. I just want to stay here with you. He calmly replied, Macon, I don't make the rules. I follow them, just like you. I realized, oh, right, you work for God. His response was genius. An 8x10 photo of my husband and son appeared next to him. When I heard their telepathic cries, I said, Jesus, don't go. We need you. Oh my goodness, I must return, I exclaimed. When I said, okay, and started walking down this dirt path, Jesus answered, okay, well then it's time to go. The draw was for my son. It was stunning. I took my stole and toga to a shanty and put them in a wicker basket. I turned around and headed back to my hospital room, toward the skies. As I traveled, I saw cherubs rising from the trees. Muhammad then appeared again. He walked amid lush flowers and grass as he emerged from the forest or woods. Meet in the middle. Megan, you have to go back, he muttered as I approached. I'll be with you forever. I will always support you. I will always support you. Listen, I don't know anything about your religion you started, I gently said after thinking. Do you mind my embrace? A nod indicated agreement. I kneeled and hugged his neck, and he did the same. It was amazing and I felt boundless affection. I let go like him. I said, "I love you." And he answered, "I love you too." Once I was back in my body, I felt it. I saw a nurse when I woke up, but I can't describe her. Who else could have been there? Can't recall. I said, "I just saw Jesus." She confirmed, "You did." I shouted, "It was terrific, utterly amazing." We stared at one another before I continued. Acceptance and love are the same, as I'll conclude my story. I heard this from God, Jesus, Muhammad, and others in heaven. It's crucial that we all practice this daily. Not even the worst conditions of this incarnation can separate us from the desire to accept ourselves in our past lifetimes. Love drives all life's events. Heaven isn't religious, I realized. Jesus Christ, Krishna, Lakshmi, Vishnu, Kali, and Ganesh, whom I met, are represented. Many religions and ideologies coexist peacefully. Good job. You can gaze, high-five, or shake hands. Only the loving word has spread. There are no religious schisms in heaven. Jewish faith will be practiced in paradise. The Star of David represents the original religion. In the book God told me to write, I detail the bigger story. We must all reconsider our responses to life's problems. Let's listen, relax, and try to understand each situation before reacting. Judgment is futile, therefore let's analyze the person first. Heaven is judgment-free. Look at each other. The person in front of you has a past. His life, how's it? Accept even if you don't understand. Improve it if it's awful. Changing is easy. A united front. We can accomplish more together than individually. A message I heard recently says, be intentional with your energy, time, words, craft, breathing, heart, habits, focus, self-talk, life, by Mahatma Gandhi. You have power. I realized this when I met Gandhi in paradise. Why not restate Gandhi's claims? It would be a shame to forget those who fought for love and peace before us. This is all I know about this near-death event. Thanks for letting me tell you. I am so pleased to join this loving forum.